Yeah, I know this channel is a mess. Consistency never. Focus direction never. Dislike, unsubscribe, kill everyone, condone first-degree murder, promote cannibalism. Now to the topic. So there's this one part of the human experience which can not only be like beautiful and captivating, but also, just by the matter of fact, one of the byproducts of which is literally us being here right now. Like, without that part of us as humanity, you and I and like that person over there would just wouldn't be here. And you know what that part of humanity is. If you clicked on the video, you know what that part is. Everyone knows what it is, even without me mentioning it. Yeah, and this part of humanity is like, it's profoundly important, as you may guess. So how do we usually deal with it? Like, how do we acknowledge it? How do we celebrate its beauty? Well, apparently we didn't come up with anything better than to just like reference it in very derogatory ways in heated arguments, which is, I mean, yeah, that's a thing. Like, if you take a look at society as if from the outside, there may be a moment when you like might start thinking that like dude, like we really hate sex like a lot. I mean, most of the strong language and insults in general that are being thrown around in like a multitude of variations are directly related to genitalia or specific sexual acts. I could give some examples, but I'm pretty sure you know enough to understand what I'm getting at. I'm pretty sure you know enough to understand what I'm getting at here. And it baffled me for a long time. I mean, of course, one can guess at some like pretty strong reasons why there would be such developments in language initially, as in the times of yore, they were hard. There was war and pillage and revolution, and all of that led to a lot of, shall we say, unwanted encounters of the physical kind that violated all sorts of moral boundaries. And the society in general has not been as developed as it is right now, both intellectually and empathically, if you will. And all of this contributed greatly to human sexuality and human relationships in general being treated with a heavy lack of regard and delicacy they deserve to be treated with. Because of that, like, it makes sense that a lot of cultures would and did develop sets of negative connotations for things that have to do with sex. After all, in massive amount of cases, sex has manifested in all shades and severities of unpleasant. Yeah, and if you were an attentive little pupper, you could say, like, wait a little bit. All the things you just said about human sexuality and relationships being treated unjustly could just very well be applied to our society right now, our modern world we live in. Yeah, you would be right, unfortunately. That's part of my point. And like, yeah, we really did come a long way and had some like real tangible progress in the development of a more empathic and open-minded worldview, and just more humane life conditions in general. But I think everyone would agree that we still have a ton of work to do in giving all things good and sexy a rich, fertile soil to flourish on. And in our current circumstances, there is still a like terrifying amount of cases where sexuality manifests in absolutely despicable ways. And one of the things I spend like a lot of time thinking about is how could we bring that amount ever lower, and how could we deal with all the violence and assault? And yeah, there are some mighty questions right there, and it would be great if someone actually came up with a definitive working algorithm of achieving those noble goals. But no one did it yet, unfortunately, and I doubt anyone will come even close to doing that in near future, if ever, which may sound a little bit depressing, but I don't know. I guess it's a more of a realistic view of things. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't try to come close to that, achieving that. And a good point from which to start would be to just putting your ideas out there and starting conversations, because conversation with these matters really truly deserve. So to feel like I'm contributing, at least in some way, I would like to mention a couple of things that I've been thinking about, and things that for some reason I really never heard anyone talk about. Like, you may be familiar with this feeling where you want to make this video, talk about something, or write about something, right? And then you just stumble upon an article or video or something, some sort of media, piece of media that talks about the same issue you want to talk about, and does so in a very professional, profound way. And you're like, okay, it's not like I really wanted to make that video. With the things that I want to talk about here, it's one of the extremely rare cases where I genuinely never heard anyone talk about it for some reason. The only time I ever heard someone even mentioning it was in one of the videos by Sexplanations, and it was literally one sentence in a video. I don't remember what video it was. Okay, so as you may have guessed from the title of the video, from the direction of this conversation that I've been hinting at, the thing that I want to mention, the thing that I want to talk about is, why do we still use words for genitalia and sexual activities as insults? And I mean, yeah, okay, I get it. All those activities people mention in heated arguments and or states of great frustration could be performed in very much non-consensual, traumatic ways. But as unfortunate as the fact is, literally any other activity that you can think of could also be performed in a non-consensual, traumatic way. Imagine forming this habit of using the word relative as an insult just because there are some abusive parents in our world. Which, yeah, it is true, but it seems kind of strange to just take this possibility of the thing being taken in a negative way and like contorting the whole initial meaning of the word to that negative, which it seems kind of, shall I say, perverted, which is a strange word to use in the context of this video, but like it feels like this widespread use of sexuality related insults may actually like stimulate this proliferation of this worldview that, or like point of view that infers sexuality is just divisive and dark in nature. Just look at how bad it can be. I don't know, maybe it's an exaggeration, but like how it kind of feels to me sometimes. So this kind of forms this vicious cycle of events in the past, like wars, slavery, conquest, discrimination, etc., influencing our language, and that language in turn influencing our attitudes toward things and our actions, which leads to new unpleasant events, and so it goes on. Okay? Just to be clear, I should point out that I'm not 100% clean myself when it comes to like using strong language, akin to what we have just discussed. Sometimes I could use a single F word here and there when I'm on my own and am very frustrated about something, okay? But like, that's pretty much it. That word is now so overused that it like basically lost all meaning, and like literally any connotation could be assigned to it. And it's also a simple one syllable word that you can say very easily. And so saying it out loud at great volumes may act as the sort of vent out action, releasing a lot of negative energy that you have pent up, which I guess is also a very interesting phrase to say in the context of this video, but let's move on. When it comes to more like elaborate curse phrases and, you know, strong language related to sexuality, I just can't use it. Like I tried, I can't use it just because when I try to use it, I just instantly start thinking about what I'm saying and what it means. And I am consequently reminded that I do not have this like view on sexuality that would allow me to use any aspect of it in a derogatory way. Especially this applies when I'm talking in my native language as opposed to English, because when I'm talking in my native language, I have much more social and emotional context for all the things I hear and say. Yeah, there's that. Coming back to the meaning of those insults, words, and phrases, I don't know. I mean, some of the things I hear people say and what people refer to when letting out their anger at each other could be used, if phrased differently, as genuine compliments in my ideal world. And indulge me here a little bit, like I'll explain what I mean by that. Rather than taking that particular like activity or practice, sexual one at that, that someone uses as an insult, I would take that, phrase it differently, in a more positive way, and use this to convey understanding and I guess emotional connection to someone, and I mean like positive emotional connection to someone, as in I feel that we have such a strong understanding of and connection with each other that I would, with your full consent, engage with you in such and such activity and would gladly share this intimate experience with you. I don't know. Maybe just like one of the most important factors here subjectively is that I'm just one of the least confrontational people you'll ever find. I never have this desire to hold someone guilty if it's not critically important. I just don't ever want to like get jabs at anyone or just like insult anyone in general. Like I don't get it. I don't feel that way towards people, so I don't know, maybe that's a thing. I would really want to delve like unnecessarily deep into the whole compassion thing and start promoting the radical values of understanding and empathy. You know, in the lines of, why do we have to be so confrontational, dude? We're all just one energy, man. But I guess it probably could be seen as a tangent, like a very massive tangent here. I don't know. I guess I'll just skip it for now. But I would really like to talk about that, and I wouldn't see it as a tangent, and it's like really important. But I guess I'll just spare you here. Moving on. If there are any people who are watching this right now who have the habit of using this sort of strong language related to sexuality that we just discussed, I would really like to know, just of pure curiosity and the desire to understand the world better. Like, why do you use that? Why do you use those sort of words and phrases? Do you think what they mean when you use them, or do you use them just purely to let out emotions and you just don't care what you say? It's like the fact of saying something out loud. And like, if you're okay with sharing such information, like, does you using those kinds of phrases and words with negative connotation affect your views on sexuality in any way? And does it reflect your views on sexuality in any way? It would really be great to know, because I personally don't have much experience in this field, so to say. From what experience I have in this field, what I've noticed is, even in those cases when I use the dreaded F word, but only when I'm all by my lonesome, so that no one hears that, it's not really the meaning of the word that I want from it. I just, like I mentioned it earlier, it's just like this slight emotional relief that I get from saying something out loud. That's about it. Probably screaming a vowel loudly would have the same effect for me. What I like also find extremely helpful in managing your emotions and venting out is just moving and dancing to some violent, angry music. You know, like some sort of, I don't know, whatever, gent deathcore, whatever. Deathcore is dead pretty much, but you know what I mean, like some sort of heavy metal sort of thing. It's, I don't know, for me, it works. It just works. Yeah, and so it would really be cool to know, when you use these sort of like this sort of strong language related to sexuality, do you do it just because you need to say something out loud and vent out your frustration? Because if that's the case, and if you don't really need the specifics of what you're saying, so the actual like meaning of the words that you're saying, maybe like we could come to an agreement where we should start using something more vague and abstract so as not to taint sexuality, so to say. I guess if you want something specific, there's plenty of bad in all sorts of other areas to serve about everyone with enough material for anger management. You know, I just realized, like, I sound like this sort of stereotypical vegan activist. You know, like, just switch your bad words that bring about violence and abuse for more compassionate and neutral words. It's good for you and for the planet. It's also as tasty as the real thing. But, you know, it's actually okay because I am in fact vegan, and this whole thing has been like secretly a decoy for vegan propaganda, so you have been trapped. Yeah, jokes aside, when we are dealing with such a delicate and borderline undiscussed thing as human sexuality, it seems like it would probably be better to be more aware that some of the things we say may, like, even unintentionally, passively confirm and spread this sex equals confusing and unpleasant sort of mindset in society where there is still about 100% more abuse than we would need. I mean, a term like dirty talk exists, right? It's like, it's crazy. And like, to be clear, I'm not kink shaming anyone. I gladly admit that the wild and unrestricted nature of it all is pretty arousing, and yeah, it could be very interesting. This forbidden part adds a lot of flair and spice, you know, but the fact that we call such activities dirty, it kind of tells us a lot about, like, the historical and societal context of sexuality and how it has been and is still being viewed. Okay, so here is an interesting part where I will use food metaphors for they get my point across better. So imagine rice, like plain boiled rice, like nothing added to it, like just rice boiled. It's boring, right? It's very boring. You wouldn't eat it on your usual day. The only time you would eat it is probably after having a food poisoning, where, like, it's the only thing you could actually eat because, like, it's very bland and it's not gonna. It's like pure carbohydrates. It's nothing else. Yeah, but on your usual day, you just wouldn't eat it because it's boring. So to make it less boring, you add some salt. Okay. It's still not a gourmet thing, but it's a little bit more interesting. It probably eating boiled rice with salt has at least some chance of giving you a little bit of pleasure when you eat it. And in this manner, like, we add salt to all sorts of food, so it would taste a little bit better. It just gives this flair and spice to it, right? It's more interesting. However, if you, like, take a packet of salt and carry it around with you, and at any time when there's a conversation that brings about negative emotions, you just take a spoon of salt and, like, force feed it to the other person, it's not a very good thing. Like, it's probably gonna make that person not want to eat anything for, like, a day at least, because force feeding someone spoonfuls of salt could very well have this effect on people, right? I hope you understand what I'm getting at here. Salt is nice. Spice is cool. when used sparingly with food. But when used on its own, and being force-fed to someone in great quantities, it may have an effect of alienating someone from from eating anything for quite some time. Yeah. I guess the one additional thing that I want to mention is that, like, I also would really like to go into the whole we need more sex education and literal empathy classes thing, but it's slightly out of scope of this limited little foray into human condition. Or, I don't know, maybe I'm just like wiggling my way out of making effort and expanding on this idea, hiding behind the at least I started the conversation mindset, but we'll never know. I guess what I'm trying to say in general is the next time you have an urge to
refer
to a forced fellatio in an argument, I would kindly ask you to like think if what you're going to say truly reflects your views on sexuality and what effects it may have on other people's views on sexuality. If by chance you saying that may, in one way or the other, offhandedly invest into the metaphorical sex negativity piggy bank, yeah, I guess that's like the whole message I'm trying to convey here. And also, I would really like to hear your thoughts on this whole thing, because I don't know, I've never heard anyone talk about it. And I myself, for some reason, only talked about it to like one friend one time. So yeah, like we really need more discussion on this. And I don't know. Now I feel like maybe I could have done much more research on the topic, but it seems like it's one of these sort of topics where a collection of personal opinions and experiences would be just much greater to have than like scientific research or something like that. So please, if you would like to, just elaborate on your view of this whole thing that we've just been talking about for some time now, okay? Yeah. I guess that's about it. This video has been sponsored by BPIS. And take care, and remember that if it's not consensual, it's not sex anymore. I'll see you next time, whenever. Bye.